Hey there, happy Friday. It's your South Florida Mortgage Report. It's Billy May, your hat dude wearing mortgage guy with Craig A. Garcia, the president of Capital Partners Mortgage. And we're ready to rock and roll, Craig. So we're going to talk about really a couple of key topics. Mortgage rates. That's huge right now. The Freddie Mac survey came out. Also, we're going to talk about something that's been in the news lately is like the South Florida. What's going on in South Florida real estate? We see this crash, so to speak. Talk a little bit about that. And then also about this is the time of year where the property taxes are due in November. If you're doing online search, if you're a home buyer, if you're looking to buy a home, you want to crunch some numbers. Sometimes you can be fooled by what you read online. So always dig into the numbers and dig deeper into the information, right, Craig?
Yep, we're gonna get into that hot and heavy.
All right. So let's talk about the rates. The Freddie Mac survey came out. Rates trending slightly upwards. Says it's 6.22. Last week it was 6.17. And we always say, listen, that data is about 4 days old because remember, it's all surveying lenders from last week. So rates are kind of
Yep.
trending upwards. And then this week we had some nice price kind of relief, so to speak, Monday, Tuesday. And then Wednesday was kind of chaotic. And now back today, we're looking a little better.
This has actually been a pretty constructive week for rates. It's been an improvement week for rates versus where we ended off last week. And we always talk about the Freddie Mac survey because that's the big number that gets headlines on the news and people see that a lot. But it's usually a little lagged. So this week's been pretty good. Wednesday, we actually had a little bit of a blip. Rates got worse on Wednesday. We had there's not a lot of economic reports coming out from the government because of the shutdown.
Right.
But there was a report about services inflation. So the inflation tied to the services industry that was higher than expected and caused the bond market to sell off a little bit. Rates got a little worse, and then I think probably there's been some more negative kind of talk about the economy and the jobs market worsening. And I know Jamie Dimon had some things to say that he felt like there was an employment problem coming at some point, and so the stock market's been a little under pressure. And a lot of times the historical seesaw in the financial markets is you have when stocks are up. Bond prices go down actually means rates are getting worse.
Yeah.
And then when the stock market is bad, then usually bond prices are getting better. Some people are selling stocks to buy
Yeah.
bonds. And usually when people want to buy bonds, that actually means that rates can get better. So that dynamic fell apart during the inflation run that we had. But this week it's kind of been playing out that way.
Yeah.
So probably, better. Rates are probably better here at the end of this week than they were at the end of last week. And we wait, I'm sure, the intensity of the pressure of the players involved in the shutdown, it's only getting worse. And so I'm sure they're going to figure something out and get back to business here soon. And then they'll start getting regular reports. So,
you would
it's
think so.
possible that right now, every little report that comes out, because there's not a lot of it, has a little bit of a greater impact than maybe it otherwise would have.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. They're taking a look at some of these reports. So I've never even heard the names of these reports before. That's one thing they have to look at because the shutdown. And speaking of the shutdown, people have asked me, some realtor referral partners have asked me, hey, I understand it's having delays in closings. Like an FHA or VA. We've not seen that at all, Greg. The only challenge is that the National Flood Insurance Program is not available, so you have to get private flood insurance, but that's not really a big deal. It's not affected anything, right?
I'm not aware of any, certainly delays in closing. The only segment of loans that's been impacted is the USDA.
Right.
If you're getting
We don't have that in
USDA
this market
loan.
anyway.
It's not really much in our market, but that certainly does impact some people.
Right.
If you want to get a little bit of a interesting look, you can go to the USDA website, and there's a bit of a political commentary on there about why they can't do loans right now.
No, boy, I don't even want
Which
to go
is
there, right? So
yeah, which is interesting. But yeah, no, for the most part, it's been business as usual, thankfully.
nothing. We haven't
So
seen any delays in anything like that. I mean, we're working VA loans.
no,
Everything's just moving right ahead.
yeah.
You mentioned, or we had talked about just briefly, the kind of chaotic South Florida market. Who knows what's going on? But people think, there's a lot of angst in the market. But really, you just said that, or you were saying that we've had our best application month this year, correct?
Yeah, it was funny. I was doing I was curious, hey, what are people searching for, like on YouTube and in Google about, about South Florida real estate or Florida real estate. And a lot of the stuff that came up about the market there was a lot of stuff about crashes and this and
Yeah.
that. You know, what I mean, it was very like doom. What do they call it? Doom
Well,
scrolling.
that's where that clickbait thing comes in, I think. People are just trying to get clicks,
As just
obviously, bad news
yeah,
sells faster.
trying to get attention. But we did. We October was our best application month of the entire year. And it's been one of the stronger months we've had in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So that was pretty. So that was pretty good. The I think if the price is right, you know what I mean? And if you're a
Sure.
buyer, you have the opportunity to kind of get some negotiating power on your side. So
Yeah.
we've definitely seen deals coming together, which is nice.
Absolutely. And since it is November now, or segueing to November, this is where the property tax bill has actually formally come out from the counties. And I know you wanted to touch on kind of some of the challenges here because if a buyer goes to Zillow and they see how much is the tax on this property, is working with a local lender, you'll get a really real world answers with, like, let's say that homeowners insurance cost, for example, and the correct taxes. If you go to Zillow, what happens is that, well, you explain, Craig. I mean, the tax bill comes out now, and sometimes things aren't what they seem.
So what happens is every year in our market in Florida, the property tax bills come out on November 1st. They get and they're formally posted and released and everything. Um, and that happens every year. And so and every year from year to year, the property taxes are going to change on a property, and normally they're going to go up. That's not always the case. I mean, if the market's declining, it could go down, and we saw that back during the financial recession. But by and large, every year your property taxes go up a little bit. If you have homestead exemption, keeps the property taxes from going up too much. It's capped at 3% per year of how much the tax bill or the assessed value that they base the taxes on can increase. I thought it would be interesting because the tax bill just came out about a week ago, and I started looking at properties on Zillow, and then I pulled up Zillow and I pulled up the county website to actually see the actual tax bill, and I pulled up, and I don't think I don't think you know the answer to this yet, but I pulled up, and I just went through the first 10 properties. How many of the properties out of the 10 properties that I looked up, Bill, would you imagine that it reflected the new tax bill on that property?
I would say 0 out of
What would
10
you guess?
reflect the new taxes.
Well, you're close. It was 1. So
Oh,
1
okay.
out of the 10, and I just pulled 10 random properties. 9 of them had the prior year's tax bill. Now, the good news is that most of the time that difference in the tax of what was listed on Zillow,
Right.
and I was looking at Zillow, by the way, versus what the actual tax bill wasn't severe. It wasn't
Yeah.
that much of an increase.
Most of the
So,
time now, key word here, most of the time. I know where you're going with this.
but one of them, the tax bill that was on Zillow was 3950,
Right?
and the actual new tax bill on that property was
8 grand.
$8,800.
Oh, I
So
hate to laugh. Yeah.
it was a $4,800 difference. That's $400 a month
Yeah.
in a monthly payment difference. So the reason we bring it up is, if you're an agent listening to this, it's a good reminder. If you haven't done it already, go through your listings, check that out. You might want to update that because, and then if you're somebody that's looking online, which a lot of people, most people start looking online,
Yeah.
and some of these websites will have a nice payment calculator for you, and it'll pull that stuff in,
Yeah.
and you think this is what your payment's going to be. Now, and usually when you see this big increase, it means somebody probably lost their homestead exemption, from one year to the next.
That's right.
So
And,
if
and it happened this year. So let's say they moved out of the property earlier this year or last year, and the homes, you don't know. I've had clients, we got burned by this.
Yeah, and it's a pretty normal thing. So I mean, so this homestead exemption we just talked about with the
Right.
3% cap on the assessed value. So the longer you're in the property, then your tax bill on that property is kind of under the market, right? Because the market's been going up 4 or 5% or 10% one year, but your tax bill's only been going up based off of a 3% assessed increase.
Right.
So but once the property changes hands, or if you moved out of the property and now you no longer have homestead exemption, it gives the tax office the ability to reassess and bring the assessed value up to meet the market. And so the longer somebody had the property and the more suppressed that property tax bill is,
Yeah.
the bigger the jump can be. So the point would be if you're really looking to make a decision on putting an offer on a property, I would check the county website of the house that you're looking at. Make sure that the tax bill that you're basing your numbers on is the tax bill and not what somebody put into or what a computer scraped off the internet. That might be out of date, and
Yeah.
so because sometimes it can make a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, and if you're
So
a
that
listing
that
agent,
can really actually
capital.
something like that can actually make the difference between somebody. Yeah, it can make the difference between somebody qualifying and not qualifying, even.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
not to
Absolutely.
mention your own personal budget constraints. So
Yeah, it
yeah,
is
so
true.
that's
But
the tip of the day.
yeah. Yeah, we have seen that over the
Yeah,
years, and, yeah, it definitely gotta be careful that whether you're a first-time home buyer or seasoned buyer, but if you're a listing agent or buying or selling agent, you really need to dig deep and look at that because, like you said, that could kill a deal, really. And yeah, just be careful, and I've explained to people, "Listen, you could look at 2 houses right next to each other, when the taxes on one could be X and the taxes on the other could be Y, so to speak, because the person in Y bought the house 30 years ago, so their taxes are way lower. You really can't go off what the current tax bill is. You really kind of have to crunch some numbers with a preferred lender that's going to really educate you what your proposed tax bill will be next year. Most of the county websites, and we have a pretty good one on Broward County Property Appraiser website, they have some calculators on there. Also, if you're a current homeowner and in Florida and you want to relocate and you have that portability, you could go on to the BCPA website and there's a portability calculator. If you click on your home and you can say, "Hey, I own this home. I want to move and I want to buy a home in Florida and pay this much," it'll give you a calculator and tell you what your taxes are going to be on the next home, and you might be pleasantly surprised. It may not be as bad as you think, actually. So I always try to
yeah.
tell people to show that, or I'll even go on calculator and do it for them. But yeah, calculating correct payments is huge, huge stuff.
I think I see a future podcast episode where we walk through using that portability calculator.
Yeah,
Because
great idea. Yeah.
it's pretty handy and pretty eye opening sometimes for people. So
For sure, for sure. And a lot of first-time home buyers, they do go to Zillow. And so with that said, just as a reminder, Hometown Heroes, first-time home buyers, Hometown Heroes is still available. I think there's like $20 million left. So it looks like it's going to be going through probably the end of the year. A great program still available with capital partners. We have our Homefront Heroes programs. We have our own down payment assistance programs. They're always available, usually all season long. So we have those available. And there's great inventory out there. I've been speaking with some of my referral partners, realtors. It's great inventory. So lots of opportunity for a first home buyer right now, and rates are good. So that's all good stuff.
yep,
Yeah.
I would definitely get in the game. And definitely if you are looking at doing something, we've been talking about homestead, caps on property taxes and things of that nature. In order to qualify for your homestead break for next year, you got to own the home. If you're looking to buy, you got to own the home by the end of December. So
That's
usually we
right.
see people trying to get in here by the end of the year so that they can file for next year. Because if you close instead at the very beginning of January,
Yeah,
then you got to wait another year to be able to file.
that's true.
So for the
Yeah.
homestead exemption. So it's just the
Yeah,
way
that
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 works.
that's a good point. Well, let's go ahead and
So
we'll,
get in,
we'll
get under contract.
yeah, get in and get our contract, get the homestead filed this year, take advantage of it, 'cause otherwise you're gonna wait 2 years if you wait till January, so good stuff. So speaking of podcasts and in the future and so forth, last week we had a great, podcast. We had our Hat Pomerantz, on as a guest. We're gonna have a guest, next week as well, right, Craig? So we're looking forward to that, something a little different, but very informative.
Yeah, we have an attorney that specializes in helping people do some planning and protection strategies, and I think that is going to be pretty interesting for people to hear. So I'm excited to go in depth with our guest next week. So
All right. Sounds good. Looking forward to it, bro. So listen, you have a great weekend. We're gonna close it
you
out. Some
too.
great wrap up information here. When we went over rates, we talked about property taxes. Be careful about that. Make sure we crunch some numbers for you, and also some down payment assistance available still for people. So good stuff. So as always, Craig, great chatting with you, and we'll see you
At the closing table,
at the
sir.
closing table. That's right. Hats off.
All right.
Have a great weekend.
You too, Bill.
I take care.